coming up on episode 89 of Creative Writing.
You have to pick a social media channel where you can actually sell books.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost like
You have to engage and sell in the same place.
got me up again tonight.
Hello and welcome to episode 89 of Creative Writing. This is the podcast for writers, bloggers, and creatives who want to build an online platform without being smarmy. And I'm your host, Kirsten Oliphant. If you are a regular listener, you know this podcast episode is coming out a few days late, and you may have heard the bonus episode from Monday, which was really a nice surprise. So my computer died over the weekend, which is, always the best thing. It was working, and then all of a sudden there was this white screen flashing at me, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I asked Facebook, and Facebook said, you're screwed, basically. But I have a Mac, and the Mac store was able to plug in and say it's just a cord on the inside that's busted. And my husband was able to put in a new $17 cord from Amazon on the inside of my computer. Ta-da! So I have a computer working again, which is great because nobody wants the expense of buying a new computer. And this is a hand-me-down Mac, so I haven't had to actually feel the burn of buying a Mac with my money yet. This one's 6 years old, and that should make you pause. This is why, this is not a commercial for Mac, but I will just say that 6-year-old Macs just beat the pants off of a 2-year-old Dell. That's what I have. I tried to use my old Dell that was 2 years old, maybe 3. I used it for a year and then got the Mac. So I tried to use that, and it took me 10 minutes to boot it up and 5 minutes to actually try to leave a comment on a Facebook post. And I say try because I never got the comment. So 3-year-old or 2 or 3-year-old PC versus 6-year-old Mac. Mac is running strong after a $17 fix. So yeah, I will not be buying PC anytime soon again, which means I really don't want to buy a new Mac because they're super expensive, but worth it because the length of time it lasts. Okay, we're done talking about computers. In any case, my computer is fixed. Hooray! And I'm very excited. So Monday, or I guess Sunday night, I had emailed Matt McCarrick, who is my community wizard over in the Facebook group and just a really big help to me with bouncing ideas off, for the group and for the podcast and everything else. And I said, hey, can you just do a really quick, mini episode to just say, hey, Kirsten's computer's broken. She'll be back in a few days, hopefully. And I really just said, hey, we just linked to the community, our Facebook community. I thought it would be a 30-second thing where he's like, hey, this is me, Matt. Go to Facebook, podcast not happening, computer broken, the end. And it was such a sweet, wonderful episode. Sweet maybe isn't the right word. It felt sweet to me because I loved how personal it was. He went above and beyond what I had expected and asked for, because I just wanted kind of a placeholder, for people who may not be in the Facebook group and know that my computer was toast. They may be wondering, where's the podcast episode? So it was really just supposed to be kind of the placeholder, but he talked about how wonderful the community is. And I had people saying, hey, what a smart idea to have Matt be your social proof. And I was like, well, yes, it was a good idea. Or Matt just did that on his own because he's awesome and our community really is great. So if you haven't listened, that was a great episode. He gave people personal shout outs by name. And I've been doing that in the quick fix, but it kind of made me want to do it more often. So in any case, that is the bonus episode you'll find in your podcast feed. So a big thank you to Matt McCarrick, who you can find at phosphorusproject.com. You can also listen to his podcast, the One Verse Devotional Podcast, which is a really great 5-day-a-week short podcast going over, get this, one verse from the Bible every day, which is a lot of fun. And we listen with our family, which is a really great short devotional time. So thank you, Matt, for doing that, and go show him some love, you guys. So for today's episode, I am interviewing Chris Syme from CK Syme Media, and I first heard of her through the Smarty Pants podcast, and I was actually a guest on her show a few months ago. Maybe it's a little bit longer now. Time passes very strangely when you have a baby. I have no idea what's going on. We talked about email lists because, that's my thing. And in this episode, I had her come on and I wanted to talk, real talk about strategies for marketing your books. And a lot of you, whether you are considering yourself kind of a full-time author and you happen to have a blog, or if you're a blogger who wants to put out books, this is a really helpful episode in terms of marketing. And I was a little bit surprised, though I shouldn't have been, about which one platform she said we need to pay attention to. So let's get right into the interview, and you can find the show notes for this at createifwriting.com/089. Stay tuned also to hear about a live training coming up on Tuesday night, the 21st of February. Well, today I've got author and a lot of titles to her name. Chris Syme is here from CK Syme Media Group. I don't. What title do you want to go by? I should have asked you this beforehand, but you have so many things you do. What should we call you, Chris?
I always tell people I'm an online entrepreneur, but since I read Anna Recorder's book, You Must Write a Book, I think I'm supposed to say I'm an author.
There you go. Okay.
No matter what people ask me.
We can call you author/entrepreneur. I think
there we go.
That's a good one. And we're going to be talking about that today, kind of that weird balance of being an author and a business person and what that means. But I'm really glad to have you on the podcast. I've been on your podcast, the Smarty Pants podcast, which was fantastic, and is a great listen for people. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have you here. So let's talk a little bit about kind of your journey. I always like to kind of hear where people started, because we always start in such different places, and the journey is always so interesting. So you are the founder and the head of the CK Syme Media Group and an author/entrepreneur. So talk us through a little bit of your journey and kind of where you started out, and then how it led you to where you are now.
Well, I wouldn't be giving my life justice if I didn't tell you a little short story about the very first time that marketing ever intrigued me. And that was when I was in second grade. And my dad owned a landscape architect business, did a lot of seasonal advertising in the newspaper. And one day I was sitting in his office, and he happened to have open on his desk, he used to give me pencils and stuff to draw with and things, and had the newspaper open. And I saw this ad for his business, and my mind just started thinking, and this nursery rhyme came to my mind about how you could lay sod. And it's winking, blinking, and nod, 3 peas in a pod, it rhymes with sod anyway. So I asked my dad, I said, well, I can do that. And so he gave me a piece of paper. I sat down and I drew a picture of these 3 stick figures laying sod with a little tagline underneath it. And I gave it to him, and he put it up on his little bulletin board thing. And ever since then, I've been intrigued with everything from commercials to making words fit together that make people take actions. I was an English teacher, but mostly I got my marketing chops working in small business. And then after I went back to graduate school, I started working in higher ed marketing, and then sports marketing. And so I did a lot of work there. And then my mom had a health crisis in 2010. And long story short, I quit work and to help my dad, and started consulting. And then my daughter, who's an author, a mid-lister romance author, needed help with her marketing. Her platform was outgrowing itself a little bit. So it happened to be a great time for me to do a pivot. I was doing a lot of flying around the country, and I hate flying. I don't like getting on airplanes. So I offered to help her with book marketing. And it took me about a year, I think, to get up to speed, because some of the tactics are different, but marketing principles are the same everywhere. So I love to write. I've always loved to write, loved to read. And so I thought I'd just start writing nonfiction books, because I thought authors needed some good information. So I love to read fiction, but I can't write it. So that's kind of where I got here.
That's so interesting. I love kind of the beginning from back when you're really little with that in your dad's office. That's such a cute story. But I think sometimes we do see like these glimmers of what we do now in our childhood, which is so cool. I used to write books like in notebooks and stuff. And so it's no surprise that I'm kind of doing what I'm doing now. Although the kind of the marketing side and the business piece really surprised me. I never saw myself as like a business person at all. Right. And so now this is like this world that I'm into and find really fascinating. So that was kind of a surprise to me. And I think, we, as authors and people who are blogging, I have a lot of bloggers in my audience as well. I think there's sort of this love-hate relationship with like the idea of marketing and social media. And so kind of hearing your story where it's such a pleasant and nice thing, what would you say to kind of encourage people who are struggling with sort of that aspect of social media and promotion and marketing?
Well, I just think that you have to find that thing that where the light bulb goes off for you. I know with a lot of people, I don't like to talk about myself. I don't like to have to navigate online, which is tricky. I mean, think of self-published authors doing everything from formatting to uploading their books to having to sell their books. And it gets to be a little bit of a weary journey. So by the time you get to the marketing piece of it, people are like, isn't there a better way to do this? And also the fact that social media is dynamic. And by that, I mean, it's always changing. So I think that frustrates a lot of people. But I always tell people to find that one place in this whole gamut, in the whole marketing 101 world, where the light bulb goes off. And you think, that's fascinating to me. I really like that piece of it. That's really cool. And you need some kind of an underlying push, I think, to motivate people. And sometimes authors being solitary figures, we both work with authors who probably should be networking more and getting out more. But I think that we tend to think that we're an island unto ourselves, that our problems are not, they're not universal. And so the other thing I tell authors to do is get on forums, join Facebook groups, get out there and listen to what other authors are saying about their challenges. And I think once you find that your challenges are not just you alone and you're not the only one suffering from, the hate of marketing, I think that you develop a camaraderie with other people and then they can share with you ways that they've overcome all this stuff. So I think there's a mindset shift first. There has to be a paradigm shift, because you can't, if you hate doing something, you're always going to hate doing something. So I tell people, quit hating that. Find a way to like it, just even one little piece of it, and find other people that, are doing the same kind of thing. So
I like that. That's a great soundbite. Quit hating that. That should be like a t-shirt or tagline for your services for sure. Quit hating that. But I feel like that is so true, like the mindset shift. And I know for me, I always talk to people about like thinking platform, right? I talk a lot about platform.
Right.
And the idea of platform really bums a lot of people out, especially if they consider themselves creative people and they're doing writing, and why would they want to do this? But I think if we can reframe it to thinking of it instead of something you have to do, something that you're required to do because of the state of the world we're in right now, think of it as something you get to do. Like, it's such a privilege. You can connect with your readers, like the people that love your book, you can actually talk to them, which just wasn't really possible years ago, unless you went to like a book signing or something, something in person. Now we have this whole digital world where you can connect with your rabid fans and find new fans. And I think that's really cool. So yeah, I agree. It's so much about reframing the ideas, because Mark, like you were saying, tactics may change. And obviously we see shifts every year on social media and things that are working and what's not working. But like you're saying, the marketing ideas stay the same. And so I think if we can reset our mind and then kind of connect and see what other people are doing, it's manageable. It's not such a big, gross thing. So,
right. And I too just might add to that. I think that FOMO plays a big part in the frustration of authors, that fear of missing out. And I just look at the internet every day and see this proliferation of how to market your books blog posts by authors. And I'm thinking, not that there's anything wrong with that, but one of the reasons I wrote my latest book, Sell More Books with Less Social Media, is because there was this banter out there that, oh, you got to be here, you got to be on Instagram. How about Snapchat? Well, you got to write a blog. It was just everything. And I was just overwhelmed by reading it all. And I think that you have to understand just a little glimmer about marketing, enough to know that you don't have to be everywhere. And my daughter and I talk about this a lot on our podcast, because she hears so much frustration from authors who are tired of having to be everywhere. And she's always telling, well, you don't have to be everywhere. There's some places that you actually can't sell any books on social media. So don't even bother with those.
Yeah.
Just to learn some of these basic things about what the best practices are, and that's not, I'm not dissing people who are sharing their wonderful stories, because I love to read them, but you can't copy what everybody does. You just really want to kind of be judicious, try something and get good at it. And don't worry about the fact that you're not on Twitter 6 times a day. I mean, that's the thing, that peer pressure, that FOMO, we just have to get over it.
Well, and I think you're right. Like there are people sharing their specific stories, and what works for them may not work for everybody. And then I think also there just is bad advice out there as well, kind of all mixed together.
Well,
and it is
I'm glad
overwhelming.
you said that.
I know. I'm like, I can hear you dancing around, but we can just say it. Like there is some bad advice out there. And I don't know if it's people who don't have any experience, or it's, I feel like we're in this world where there are so many people wanting to be entrepreneurs. I'm in a lot of groups where I see people just starting out. And I've had people actually email me and try to sell me things where it's very clear they have no idea what they're doing, that they're trying to start this online business, but they don't have any knowledge. So there is bad advice out there as well. And you brought up your book, which is where I want to go next, because I really, really enjoyed your book. It's called Sell More Books with Less Social Media. That is an idea everyone can get behind. So let's talk about some of like the big marketing kind of strategies, or maybe like the overarching strategy. Like what is your overarching strategy that you would recommend when it comes to social media for authors?
Well, I think there's only one, and that's just Facebook. I'm just going to say it up front because I think that the numbers, I'm a numbers person. My background in marketing teaches me to look at numbers and then make informed decisions on what will work and what won't. That doesn't mean that everybody does Facebook the same way. It just means that you have certain markers, like you want to be able to sell. You have to pick a social media channel or platform, whatever you want to call it, where you can actually sell books. I mean, it's about connecting, but you can't sell without connecting. You can't. You have to do both. That's why Twitter's such a bust. I'm sorry, but Twitter's a bust because there's really no Twitter isn't an engagement forum. It's a place where people post news and read news and, keep up on news, and it's whatever's happening right now. Facebook actually having over 80% of online adults that use it regularly globally is mind-blowing, because the nearest channel is less than half of that. And so you just have to start with the data. And I think, as far as social media goes, but I think also, if I could just clarify that, social media isn't going to be the main place where you're going to sell your books. It is going to be the main place where you're going to connect with your fans. And I think that you have to understand the relationship between engagement and sales to understand that you can't just sell your books 100% of the time and expect people to click on your links and buy your books. So I think the overarching strategy is that one that I told Stephen Campbell on his podcast, and that is you have to engage and sell in the same place. So if you can't engage on Twitter, and certainly, Instagram is a big question mark for me because there's no ability to put a live link there. So I know I can engage there, or sort of engage, because you can't write comments in real time on Instagram. Yeah. And so I think it's a great secondary or outpost channel, but I want to spend my time judiciously where I can engage and sell. And so to me, that when it comes to social media, if you're just talking just about social media, that's Facebook.
That's so interesting. It's not that I'm surprised to hear you say that, because I agree with all the things. And obviously the numbers back that up. But I think a lot of times you just hear people saying, no, just pick a platform, and that's fine. But I think it's really important to hear, you can pick a platform, and you could pick Twitter as your platform to really engage and invest all your time. But if books are not being sold on Twitter, and I think I'd be really shocked. I mean, if anybody out there's listening and you've sold a lot of books through Twitter and you can prove that, through like tracking and stuff, give me a shout out. I'm on Twitter. You can hit me up at Kiki Mojo and just let me know, because I'm really curious. But I think most authors know that's not where the sales happen. And so it's good to hear the numbers. It's good to hear, okay, Facebook is where that's happening, because that's where people are and that's where people are buying. And I think, with Facebook ads being, obviously I think to a lot of people, it's a mystery until you really spend a lot of time there. I'm kind of like in the middle of learning what's working for me on Facebook ads, I would say. But once you kind of figure that out, Facebook ads are such a great, cheap tool. I mean, they really are, and what you can do with that. So I'm curious too. I mean, do you have thoughts kind of diving deeper into Facebook on like pages versus groups versus, I see people selling on their profile also? I mean, what would you recommend for people in terms of kind of getting started and seeing Facebook be more effective?
Well, I certainly wouldn't recommend you sell on a profile, because first of all, you're not supposed to. And second of all, there's no commerce tools there. And by commerce tools, I mean applications that Facebook has allowed developers to put together, or by the construction of their pages that actually encourage people to buy. And this is why Facebook is such a good platform for selling, because that's the way it's built. It's built for people to buy stuff there. And, you mentioned, if anybody sells books on Twitter, give me a shout out. You can sell books on any platform out there, but you got to work at it.
Yeah.
And like, don't tell me I sold, 10 books last month on Twitter. I'm like, if you can put in that much work to sell 10 books on Twitter, you could sell 100 books on Facebook. Just by having the free Booksy app installed on your page. And so there's so much going on there that, between being able to embed an email sign-up form to, there's just a lot going on there, because Facebook built a business page to sell. Facebook built Facebook groups to deepen engagement and create loyalty. And that's what they're great at. I mean, I love Facebook groups. The biggest problem with Facebook groups is there's not really you can't run ads there, and there's no commerce tools, but you can deepen the engagement of your core group of fans significantly faster on a Facebook group than you can on a page. Yes. So it just depends on how much time you have. You have to have a profile. Don't sell there. Don't even try and engage fans there. The biggest question I've gotten from authors in the last year is, how do I migrate people away from my Facebook profile over to my Facebook page? Because it's painful.
Yeah, it is.
And so they've started by, I'm engaging people on my profile, and then I'm selling my books on my Facebook page, and I'm going, nope, you can't do that. You got to engage and sell in the same place. So you got to use that 80-20 formula. 80% of my posts are about giving value, entertaining, deepening engagement, and 20% then you can sell, and they'll want you to sell. I mean, if you're giving them that much value, you can sell there, but it's strictly pages first for commerce. Groups, if you have the time. A lot of people use them for advanced review teams, street teams, that kind of thing. Those of us who are nonfiction writers and have online classes and things like that, we use them as masterminds or forums for those classes. There's a lot of great uses for them. But, the problem, and I'm sure we'll get into it with Facebook about Facebook ads, is when people think of Facebook ads, they think of Facebook ads for selling books, and they're really not good for that.
Well, what are they good for? Let's talk about that then, because I haven't talked a lot on the podcast about Facebook ads. So let's talk about what would you recommend people kind of using them for? If people are getting started or trying to figure out why are my ads not working? What would you recommend using Facebook ads for?
Well, I think the first thing I should probably clarify is I don't mean you can't sell books with them. You shouldn't launch books with Facebook ads, because you're just another person saying, buy my book, in the midst of a million other people saying, buy my refrigerator, buy my car. I mean, there's just a lot of that going on. They're good for a couple of different things. And the first thing Facebook ads are good for is warm audience ads. And a warm audience is somebody that's already opted in, somebody that likes your Facebook page. So, I've always told people, for the last few years, don't concentrate on building the numbers up on your Facebook page. And then this year I started saying, build the numbers up on your Facebook page so that you can run warm ads to your own people. So when I launch a book, when I have an event, if I'm doing a network event with other authors, if I've got a backlist promotion, book club, featured, whatever it is that I want people to share or I want to get their attention, I'm launching a book, I'm going to buy a boosted post, because darn it, they're cheap.
Yeah.
And I can reach an awful lot of people just for $5. So the thing that I have promoted warm audience ads or boosted posts for is just to make sure that you have a large percentage of your fans' email addresses. Because if you have a Facebook engagement rate of around 20%, which is pretty good for authors, I know a lot of authors have a lot higher engagement rates than normal businesses do. That means that any given post is going to reach 20% of your fans. Well, your fans have already opted into your Facebook page, so they're very likely to sign up for your email marketing. So if you run email signups periodically, let's say 3-4 times a year with a small series of warm ads to your Facebook page, and your Facebook page is growing, so you got new people coming in on a regular basis, then you'll try and stay ahead of that by at least getting 20% or working up to 50% or maybe even 70% of your Facebook fans, you want their email addresses, because if you've got people that you're email marketing to and they've already opted into something else just besides your email address, they're more likely to look at your email and more likely to buy your book. We know that by data. So it's really important to understand that all these things work together. Your email marketing works together. And you've seen this too this last year, this big trend towards people asking questions and asking for replies in email to try and warm up their email marketing list better by creating some engagement there and actually opening the door and saying, hey, I'll answer your question. Just, send me a question or whatever. And people are going, what? You want to hear from me in an email? And that has resulted in a lot of fantastic open rates that I've seen. But back to even Facebook ads. If I run Facebook ads to my own audience, they're cheaper and they have a higher rate of return because they've already opted in. The other thing, if you want to run cold audience ads or just straight ads that you put together on Ads Manager, they're really good, I found in the last year especially, for backlist promotions, for signups for these giant author networking parties that authors are getting into, where they're actually taking their signups offline so they can get email addresses and then bringing the people back onto Facebook for the actual event. So there's a lot of ways that you can use Facebook cold audiences ads, or you're trying to catch somebody's attention that doesn't know who you are, especially if you're a nonfiction person and you're selling courses or something like that. But that's kind of a long-winded explanation of my view on Facebook ads. I love them for warm audience ads because they allow me to get a lot of email addresses off of my Facebook page.
No, that's great. Like, this is really, really good information. You can understand, if you're listening, you don't already know Chris, why her podcast is the Smarty Pants podcast, because there's great, we're not just talking about experience. We're talking about data. We're talking about what's actually working. So what are some of the things, kind of talking about what's working, what are some of the trends that you're seeing? Because like you said, marketing doesn't change the principles, but the tactics shift in and out. So what are some of the trends that you're seeing kind of come up at the end of 2016 and as we're moving into 2017?
Well, let's go back and talk about email marketing real quick, because I think that's something that a lot of authors have been told that they have to be doing. And I know a couple of years ago, the trend was build these huge, humongous email lists. And I agree. The more email addresses you can have, the better, because you've already got that initial opt-in where people have given you their email address. They have said, you can market to me, or at least you can send me emails. So what I've seen in the last part of 2016 is what I told you about. It's this trend towards engagement that's created by what we call follow-up sequences or welcome sequences, or even if you you're sending out monthly broadcasts via email and you're asking a question and replying. I know a lot of authors in the paranormal, which is a sector that I work with quite a bit, who are starting to do monthly paperback giveaways to boost their open rates. It's about boosting your open rates with email marketing and then giving them one link. And this is why we're seeing the trend away from newsletters, the traditional, newsletters with 50 stories and 50 links that you got to click on. And it's all about being judicious, not only with your own time, but with your fans' time. Because as my daughter keeps reminding me, when we send somebody an email, they're also probably getting an email from maybe 25 or more other authors.
Yeah.
Every month. And so we want to be careful how much of their time we take. We can strike up conversations and engage with them and have fun on Facebook. But with email, I think it's about being judicious. So there's two things you can do with email marketing that will really help. One is do audience research. And you've read all this stuff in the last year, especially about you have to know who your audience is. You have to know what they call your avatar, or that ideal reader, and who they are, so that you can really focus in and market to that person that wants your books. Not just everybody who reads romance, but the people that want your book. And in order to do that, a lot of authors are asking marketing questions in their emails and asking for feedback. And for instance, in the welcoming sequence for one of my clients' books, we have this whole thing about what social media channels do you like? That's an easy question to ask in an email. And then you ask them to reply. And if they reply, they go into a pool where, you're going to give away a book or a book bundle or whatever you're going to give away. And then you collate all that into either a Word doc or Google Doc or an Excel spreadsheet if you're nerdy. And then you use that marketing information to help you understand where your readers are connecting. And that way, even though I tell people, you only need a Facebook page, that gives you some information on where you might want to have outposts set up. And an outpost is a place where you have a presence, and maybe you change your holding message periodically or your cover photo periodically, but you don't engage there. So let's say you read paranormal romance books. It's very likely that the rest of the people that read paranormal romance books in your same niche probably all hang out in the same social media channels. And so that's a good bet then that if I ask my 500 people in my email marketing list, what social media channels do you hang out? And maybe if you're lucky, you get a 20% feedback. So you get maybe 100 people or 50 people email you back and say, oh, it's here, here, and here. And I look at that list and I see, oh, well, I don't even have a presence on that one. Maybe I should at least put up an account and then redirect people back to where you're engaging, which is your Facebook page, your email list, or whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter. But those are just getting more specific. And I hate this phrase, but I'm going to use it. So please excuse me, drilling down more into where your people really are. And because people are getting tired of being inundated with information and crap online, they're just cutting back and liking less pages, subscribing to less email newsletters. And so you want to make sure that yours is valuable.
That's such a good point.
You want to have something that they're going to open and not just some little, newsletters. I just, we need to get rid of them. We need to start thinking about sending out one topic email blasts, and it's a mini newsletter. It shouldn't necessarily be sales, but it's got to be something that's engaging, something that you ask for some feedback on, but don't take up their time. Just don't take up their time and make sure that you're valuable. But those are some of the trends that I see. I also see authors are really starting to understand more about social media, that you don't have to be engaging everywhere, that you can just have an account. That used to scare people.
Yeah.
People used to think, oh, but aren't readers going to think I'm just cheesy and negligent and ignoring them if I have like a Twitter account and I have a cover photo up telling them to go over to Facebook? What's the deal with that? And the deal is that probably people have found you on Twitter through search. And they're just looking for you. They don't care if you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, or if you're on Snapchat, God forbid. But it's they want to find you because they want to connect with you and find out more about you, because they're starting to trickle down through that sales funnel a little bit. And they'd like to, somebody said, oh, you should read this book by so-and-so or whatever. They just want to find you. So give them a link, please, to where you're engaging. And it doesn't matter if it's on Twitter, if it's on Instagram, or wherever it is that you've decided your fans are, but you don't have time to be everywhere. You just want to be where you can sell your books the best and engage with the most people. Then it's okay to direct people from Twitter to Facebook.
That's so refreshing and freeing. I feel like there's like this collective sigh of like, as people are listening and thinking, I don't have to be everywhere. Just really, really good practical advice. I appreciate this so much. I had no idea where we were going to go, that it was going to go toward so much Facebook. And this is the thing, like, I don't study marketing. I know it works for me and what I'm using and doing. So it's really good to hear from somebody with some data and some actual information on kind of what is working overall and this stuff. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us, your thoughts and opinions, but also data. Like, it's not just like we were talking about in the beginning. It's not just random, like what works for you. This is studied. This is more something that you can trust in. So as you're listening out there, yes, be where you want to be where, things are working for you. But it's really important and good to know that Facebook is kind of the place to be. So if you're not there, you're probably missing out big time. Chris, where can people find you if they want to find out more great tips and information after this interview?
Well, thanks for asking that. I always if you go to cksyme.com, I think you can find just about everything there that you need to get a link to. Our podcast link is there. My blog is there. There's a link to my book. And my latest book and other books that I've written and pretty much everything. We also have, there's something that I always like to mention, and that is a page of vetted book marketing resources.
Ooh, and that's great.
One of the things that Becca and I talked about when we first started the podcast is we wanted to make sure that we vetted what we thought were reputable book marketing resources for people, because they get inundated with so much stuff. So it's up on the menu bar. You can't miss it, but it's blogs and podcasts and all kinds of stuff. So cksyme.com is the best place to go, I think.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, Chris. It was really great to have you on the show.
Well, thanks. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so I shouldn't have been surprised that Chris said Facebook is the place to be, but I was still a little bit surprised. I feel like so many bloggers talk about how Facebook pages aren't working and the reach is down and algorithms and ads and blah. And I know if you're frustrated with Facebook that you definitely feel that way. Like, why? Just why? I know the reach on my page dropped so significantly that I sort of just hardly update it and kind of let it hang out there, and it's, there. And I use it if I'm running Facebook ads, but I don't, it's not doing very much for me. And I feel like it takes so much work, but it was really interesting to hear from her that that's the one place that we need to be. So I hope that it wasn't too frustrating for you. And I think she gave some really great practical tips for kind of how to engage there and be there without feeling overwhelmed and actually getting some good engagement. So I liked especially her point about you need to sell where you engage. You don't need to have two separate things, two separate places. You shouldn't be engaging on your personal profile and then selling on your page, or really selling on your profile. And I know people do this. I know people do it. And I think every now and then, is okay, but technically it's violating Facebook's terms of service. So we don't want that. You don't want Facebook shutting you down, especially if that's the one place you're supposed to be. So I hope this was an encouraging and uplifting and interesting episode for you, as it was for me. And you can go check out Chris at cksymemedia.com. She has some really great resources, and I have links to all of her things and her book, which I really, really liked. And that's all at the show notes at creativewriting.com/089. A really quick word before we go. I am going to have a live training workshop that's totally free, no pitch, just a workshop for you guys on February 21st. It's going to be on Facebook groups. So this was based on a question that was asked in the Facebook group, which is funny. So we're having in the Facebook group, people were asking about Facebook groups. And I think Patty was asking because she's just starting a group. And we have a lot of people who are starting groups and feeling a little bit overwhelmed and not sure if they're doing it correctly. So we're going to have a training on how to start a Facebook group and get some good engagement going. So I would love to see you there. Again, there's no sales pitch. It's just going to be hanging out and talking and learning stuff. I will answer questions and share with you guys what I know about Facebook groups and what I've learned over the past couple of years. So I would love to see you there. If you want to sign up, you can do that by going to creativewriting.com/FB groups. And tomorrow, since today's Thursday, tomorrow you're going to get the quick fix in your feed as well. And I have some really fun links, a funny link actually, and some great links that I'm excited to share. So tune in. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you will leave a rating and review on iTunes. I've gotten a bump in those, which has been great. I love seeing that you guys are engaging and listening and responding and letting me know by leaving those reviews. Hey, if it's annoying, let me tell you, it is so much easier on the iPhone in the podcast app to leave reviews. It's such a pain on your computer. Super easy on the app. So that may be an idea for you. Just throwing that out there. Thank you to Jasmine Commerce of JasmineCommerceMusic.com for giving her lovely tunes for the show. I'm so glad you guys are here and listening, and I hope you have an inspired week.